The Standing Committee on Public Accounts reacted with shock to the update received from the SIU into the RAF. So far, the report is preliminary until a right of reply from persons of interest has been received. Some disturbing details were heard regarding the investigation method and many other details. To give us just some of the noteworthy points, Vaylen Kirtley is following that story for us today. Vaylen, very good afternoon to you. Just talk us through some of what came out of that engagement.
Thank you very much, Katleho. And it was a virtual meeting that SCOPA had, the committee looking into the public affairs, and in the spotlight, the Road Accident Fund and the SIU's investigation. A couple of concluding points where they investigated wasteful and fruitless expenditure, irregular contracts, as well as double payments being received by lawyers and what they have managed to get back. And if I can just quickly take you through how much money the SIU has been able to recover, 317 million rand. However, there are 20 cases that have been referred to the National Prosecuting Authority, potential disciplinary referrals at 20 as well. They have in fact presented 2 interim presidential reports, and they've had a total of 5 administrative referrals. It was almost 4 hours that the committee sat and not only listened to what the Special Investigating Unit had to say, but also engaged with them. There were some findings that were new, as this is an ongoing investigation, and also not the first time that the SIU has presented some findings to SCOPA about the Road Accident Fund. But one of the things that came out was regards to an executive, no names being given at all throughout today's proceedings, saying that an executive received monies from attorneys, and this executive may be using 2 identity numbers. And that could help to facilitate, and certainly has raised some red flags when questioned by the chairperson of SCOPA, Songezo Zibi, about how they exactly have been investigating and making sure that these 2 identity numbers do refer to the same person. This is what the Special Investigating Unit investigator had to say.
The investigation goes over and above the issue of the identification, because we also look at the businesses that the person of interest may be attached to. So that will give the investigation an indication of the modus operandi. And without going into details, we will also look into that. So we will have a prima facie a case or a suspicion that the identity may belong to the particular individual, the 2 identities, based on also the analysis that were done on the companies that are linked to a particular individual.
Okay, all right. Okay, so there is an extensive examination of other records, or there is an examination of other records. So in other words, you'd go to CIPC and so on, and then I guess have a reasonable suspicion. Are you able to have you as yet spoken to the person about this possibility or not?
Honorable Chairperson, not as yet.
Okay.
And Katleho, this is something that was quite important that we saw today, and that was going into the processes of the SIU and how, in fact, they have termed this report as a preliminary report, and also going to great lengths to explain their process of investigation and where the allegations currently sit, saying that they're at a far advanced stage right now where they are now looking for rights of replies and offering rights right of replies to the persons of interest, although it was noted that there has been some resistance and feet dragging, if you would like, from the RAF and those that they have sought a right of reply from. Some of the members of Parliament that were sitting in today's SCOPA did raise this question of whether a interim report, a preliminary report, should actually be coming to SCOPA and how it may prejudice people, and whether or not SCOPA can in fact be looking at a report before in fact the President does. Advocate Motibi, who is leading this investigation for the SIU, had this to say in response to the ANC's David Skosana's question on this point.
It is our view that we are enjoined when Parliament calls, in particular in this case when SCOPA calls on us to come and present and update SCOPA on our investigations, that we have to respond. So that is our view. We see it as a duty on ourselves to report to Parliament. Of course, as we report, we will indicate where appropriate that we will not be able to, disclose certain facts or certain evidence or whatever the case may be. A typical example is that there's reference to persons of interest. Because the investigation is still ongoing, we cannot name those persons. And that is why we have qualified in all of these instances that the investigation is still ongoing. We are giving the individuals the right of reply before we finalize the preliminary findings. We're calling them preliminary findings for a reason, simply because they're not final.
But Advocate Motibi Katleho also assuring the South African public as well as SCOPA that the referrals for contracts to be looked at, for disciplinaries to be had, will be ongoing. And as much as there are certain preliminary findings which can't be finalized until a right of reply is received from a person of interest, there are a number of findings which are finalized. But as the investigation is ongoing, there's additional allegations, and two of which I'd like to just read to you that came out today. The SIU received allegations that the RAF appointed some executives without following due employment processes and without vetting the executives. There are further allegations against an executive or executives and managers who were previously working with the RAF CEO, and that their employment at the RAF did not follow due employment process. So, Katleho, this is certainly not the last that we hear about what seems to be an ongoing saga with the Road Accident Fund, and certainly a lot of things to unpack if you only look at today's SCOPA.
I mean, like you say, Vaylen, it's not the first time that the RAF is in the spotlight over such issues. Very disturbing and alarming details coming out of that sitting, but certainly want to look out for those replies from persons of interest. Thank you so much for your time and for that update. That's Vaylen Kirtley out in the Western Cape. Now,